Good evening, souls. This is Joan Up, and I thank you guys for joining me tonight for my launch of Sovereign Souls. This show's been in the works for a few months, with my plan being to highlight patriots who have been especially courageous and loud in the resistance against the tyrannical oppression that we're all facing today. But we were all born for this, so we come together with a common goal of seeking truth and restoring our God-given sovereignty and achieving eternal life. Tonight, I'm honored and humbled to have a great patriot, Anon, joining me as my first guest. Welcome, Pi.
I am honored to be your premier, and honestly, the pleasure is all mine, Jonah. God bless you.
Pi, why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, about what got you to the place you are today. And I know you've got some stories that we can talk about, but let's just start with a little basic background.
Well, I'm a slack-jawed yokel from the mountains of West Virginia. I grew up on a farm, with horses, et cetera, and graduated high school around 2000. Joined the military right out of high school. Did Afghanistan and Iraq in the U.S. Navy. I was in the aviation side of things, so I wasn't tied to a ship. But after getting out of the service, I had some, rough times in life trying to deal with adulting and not being used to it, not knowing how to handle certain things that go with that time of life, especially transitioning from military life into civilian. And so, I had a pretty peppered past, but it was by the grace of God that I was able to pull myself up out of the mud. And well, actually, I should say he pulled me up out of the mud, but I'm sure you all understand what I'm saying there. And I went on a bit of a truther thing even before I left for the military. I was always into the conspiracy theories and weird little, I don't even know what to call them, because I don't want to call them conspiracy theories. I just realized at a young age I was being lied to. Something as simple as Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy. Sorry, kids. But also, things like Columbus didn't actually make it to the United States. Paul Revere wasn't the only one that rode. There was two other people, one of which was a woman, and you never hear about that in the history books. Little things like that really stuck out to me, like, why are we not being told the whole truth, or, not the truth at all? My real big wake-up moment was watching Waco happen on TV and then listening to the news say things that I didn't believe were true because I saw it, in hindsight, I have to realize, like, I was watching the news for Waco and then listened to the news and they didn't match, but I still have nothing but the mainstream news as my source. But forgetting all of that, like, they didn't match. And so that opened my eyes up to that there's something going on. And so I kind of became interested in just digging. I got really deep into my faith. I fell in love with the book of Revelations and the different prophecies throughout the Bible. And so that's kind of the path that led me on a deeper search for not only myself, but, just existence as a whole. And then I ended up on the boards, the Chans, 4chan, 8chan. That was after the service. And that was where I kind of fell in love with a lot of folks in there that were digging and doing research and a lot of the same sort of things that I was interested in. And so I decided I was going to become an quote unquote Anon, which, basically just means I liked hiding in a dark corner of the internet and talking about weird stuff that people in real life looked at me like I was a nut job. But it gave me some tough skin because, if anybody knows anything about the boards, it's free speech, even abhorrent speech. So you have to dig through the garbage to find that piece of gold. And I learned that that's part of it. And understanding the Constitution, I take all of that very seriously because of my service and my patriotism to the country. But it's led up to, where I'm at now, married, 4 kids, a house and a mortgage. And it was like, we're happy. My life was miserable because I caused misery throughout it. But now that I gave it over to a higher power, I'm Christian. So I gave my life to Christ and over 20 years ago. And it's been a lot more fulfilling ever since. It hasn't been, peaches and cream because life never is, but it has purpose now, and I'm seeing bigger things come of it.
That's great. So tell me, in your search for the truth and all of that digging and being on the boards, what do you tell people when they're trying to figure out what is the truth and what side to believe and how to discern? Because we have a lot of problems these days with our lying media and our government and all that. And so a big thing these days is, discern.
Well, that's honestly it. I mean, you got to give it to God and ask him, like, hey, give me some guidance here. Because if you use your own understanding, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. I truly believe that God's shown me certain things that there's been times in my life that I would not have even thought to look down a certain avenue, but just a little voice in the back of my head or an overwhelming feeling of like, you know what, I need to do this. Sometimes something would just pop into my lap, like, hey, look, check this out. I pushed the wrong button, but boom, here's an answer, and when it comes down to it, don't just lean on your own understanding. Don't listen to what other people are telling you to believe, give it more merit than what it has at face value, and dig, verify. If somebody tells you something, look into it, even if you trust that person implicitly.
Yeah, I see a lot of stuff going on where because we had to, wake up to a lot of things that were really crazy, that there's times that people have grasped onto something because it was such a crazy story. And then suddenly everybody thinks it's true. It's like, just because it's so crazy doesn't mean that you don't need to look at the other side and really verify. And sometimes things were the truth all along. And, coming up with some crazy story that's more fun, isn't the right truth to choose, so to speak.
Right. A lot of times folks don't know that they should verify their source, right? So you have like primary source or secondary source, a tertiary source. So if you're reading Plato and then Plato mentions somebody, take a second to step back and see who that person is and what type of credibility they had at the time versus what they have now with academic scholars. Like, read more than just one source for what you're looking at. So if, Professor A has a paper out about Plato, then check out what Professor B had and then what they put in a philosopher's magazine or some sort of philosopher's journal. I shouldn't say magazine. Go to something other than like Teen World and Maxim magazine or Rolling Stones or it's CNN for your sources. If they have information, then they had to get it from somewhere. And if, you need to be able to find that out. And if they're not willing to tell you where they got it, then that's automatically a huge red flag, or if they lie about the authorship, like if you find out that it was written by somebody that isn't actually a real person, right? So you find an article written by a pseudonym, they want to hide their identity for a reason. So that automatically would put that in okay, we need to be extremely skeptical of this file,
Yeah.
But you got to vet your sources because not everybody is as honorable or noble as yourself.
Yeah. And I think that, on top of us trying to discern what is true, we kind of touched on, don't just trust somebody because you think you should. And I think we've seen and become more and more aware of a lot of infiltration into our movement that we didn't expect. And people who were considered worthy sources have been exposed. What have you noticed with that? Have you seen a increase in that sort of thing of people being exposed and truth being twisted?
Yeah, that's the name of the game, right? So COINTELPRO, right? Counterintelligence professionals. Like, there are entire offices of people that get paid to spin stories or to put out propaganda. It all started with, well, at least in the Western civilization, it started with Edward Bernays back in the time of the World War. And he was actually used by the war effort to put out propaganda to get people to be sympathetic towards entering the war, as well as, well, I just mentioned this previously to someone else, but bacon and eggs, right? Everybody loves bacon and eggs. It's America's breakfast. But has anybody ever asked why? Edward Bernays. They wanted people to use pork for the war effort, right? And so he spun an emotional propaganda campaign to turn bacon and eggs into America's breakfast. And it's lasted so long that that's still considered a staple of American culture today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember learning that story well many years ago. And yeah, well, talk about a propaganda campaign. I mean, we just assume as now that bacon is a normal part of breakfast, but it was kind of a bizarre concept back then, but he made it so.
But if you think about like the strength of that propaganda, I mean, that's been decades upon decades ago, and that's still seen as truth in people's eyes, right? Even if they don't like bacon and eggs, if somebody asks you, if they ask them what is America's breakfast, well, bacon and eggs or steak and eggs, that's another one that came in, but it hasn't had enough merit. But the fact that you could think of like that shows the strengths of propaganda. It lasts through generations, and
Yeah.
falsehood, the truths or false truths, I should say, that we're told have a lasting impact. And you can tell somebody a lie, they'll believe it. And it's much harder to convince them that they've been lied to. Now, I love bacon and eggs, so all the haters can stay out of the comments for that. Like, I definitely dig me some pig. But when you talk about, false truths being put out there, there are people that are professionally trained or paid to spin. Now, there's other people that I believe have infiltrated our movement. I don't want to go into lists of names, but you can use your discernment to find who they are. There's certain fallacies that people use in debates, right? Like, so the appeal to authority fallacy. So I say this, and it's true because so-and-so believes me, or so-and-so said it as well. And one thing that somebody will do is they'll spin a propaganda story, and then they'll put it out, and they'll have a whole bunch of other provocateurs or co-intel agents, whatever you want, of people that are trying to put out that same narrative. They'll have them all share the same information. And so it makes that propaganda piece seem a lot more important than it really is. Or they will use, there's a bunch of different types of fallacies that people use in debate, right? That can be used as tactics to twist information, to promote information or disinformation, I should say. One of which is the slide. That's another one. Or one thing I see in my chat, especially here on Telegram, is as soon as people start having a debate and like discussing something relevant and actually getting somewhere, like making some headway on a topic, all of a sudden people will come in and just start spamming their own channels, or they'll start spamming Trump coins and all of this, but that disrupts that conversation. And so it throws people's thought processes off.
That's been a huge tactic that they've used, is the distractions. And we've seen it, across the board. And we've noticed a huge infiltration of feds on Telegram and in the rooms, and they're glowing. I mean, they're so easy to pick out. It's like they all have the same script. They're easy to spot. And I've been seeing them all over.
Absolutely. 100%. And you can, I might not know the technical names for all the different types of things, but you can recognize it, right? Like you said, they glow, the glowies. The distraction tactic actually has its origin in people used to tap their fingers while being interrogated, and then they would change the rhythm of their tapping, and it would throw off the interrogator.
Wow.
The military teaches that. It's a counter tactic.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with tap. People were in a rhythm, and then all of a sudden somebody throws off that rhythm, and then it disrupts their thought.
Speaking of the military, where do you see that the military is today? There's been a lot of people for a long time who thought, the military is going to come save us. And so how do you see where the military is today?
Well, I mean, I could give you a cliche answer and say they're exactly where they need to be, but I don't think that's what you want to hear. So the whole Q movement says military is the only way. And that can be interpreted 100 different ways. And that's the one thing I really like about Q is it causes people to think for themselves. It doesn't just come out with a blatant answer. It causes you to dig. It uses a Socratic method of asking you questions instead of just a blank statement so that you can do the research, right? It's training you how to think for yourself and how to look into and delve into different topics. But when it comes to the military specifically, I focus on one major aspect, and that's the Constitution. Every person in the military has to swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution and to obey all lawful orders from the officers appointed above them, right? So what does it mean by lawful? That is to follow the Constitution. So if you're told to do something that is unconstitutional, you as a military member have a duty to disobey that order. So when everybody's like, oh, well, the military just follows orders, and if they say to shoot Americans, then they're just going to shoot Americans. And believe me, I've heard this more often than I would like to. That is patently false. First of all, Jimmy is not going to shoot his grandma because Sergeant Dan said so. Secondly, the Constitution is the founding document of our nation, and that is what they are loyal to. They're not loyal to any factions. They're not loyal to any institution or government or leader or president. It's the document of the Constitution, which explains the inalienable rights given to us by our Creator. So the Constitution has several processes in it with checks and balance, which I don't want to do a sidebar. I'll keep this quick, but the Constitution is the greatest document in the world, in my opinion, because it literally designs our government around the people for the purpose to do nothing. It is the only document in the entire world designed to keep its government from working. And that's what makes it work so well. Because if Part A wants to do something, Part B, C, and D have to approve. And if Part D doesn't approve, then there's like checks and balances of how they can veto each other and vote and back and forth and back and forth. And so until there's not unanimous, but an almost unanimous consensus upon the people and the governed, or the governed and the governing, I should say, it doesn't allow anything to happen. People overstep their power and et cetera, et cetera. Government itself is flawed, but the Constitution has those checks and balances to protect itself, to protect us, to protect our freedoms, and to make sure that not one single entity of our governing powers have too much power. And the military understands that. So they have enough respect for the Constitution because of the oath that they swear to allow it to fail. And that is extremely important, because if you don't allow the Constitution to fail, then if anybody interjects before it fails completely, then that's illegal. It would be considered a coup or an insurrection or something of ill rapport. You're not going to be seen as a hero if you overstep the Constitution. And the last bastion of salvation for the Constitution is the military to step in with. There's a couple different policies, but the one that people are most familiar with is either martial law, or there's another one called COG. It's the continuity of government. So depending on how the Constitution has failed in its final hoorah, then there's a couple different avenues that can be taken. And the military is not going to intervene in the constitutional process illegally. They're loyal, they're dedicated, they're patient. And so if the military is going to step in and take over like everybody thinks, then it's not going to be until everything else has fallen apart. And I mean, that would mean society as a whole.
What do you think about, say, like this week we've Lindell's Cyber Symposium coming up? Do you think that we're actually going to get somewhere with that, and it's going to get us closer to the point where something's going to change?
Well, if the evidence that he has is legit, I haven't been able to verify any of his stuff. I haven't seen it. But if it is legitimate, then the people are going to see that evidence. The Cyber Symposium, if it actually gets to go through and be publicized like he wants it to, then it will reveal the evidence. But the issue with that is the public knowledge of evidence does not implore a court or a federal judge to do something about it. It still has to follow the judicial process. Is that the Supreme Court has already denied hearing cases saying that they have no standing, which is a violation of their original jurisdiction when For example, Texas, and I believe it was 16 or 17 other states, voiced their dissent for the election against other states. And so one original duty of the Supreme Court is to settle matters or arguments between states, especially on constitutional issues. But they just denied hearing the case, period. And that right there is a violation of their constitutional duty. That's their original jurisdiction. And so that, for example, is where the Constitution failed. Now, you didn't see the military go rushing into the Supreme Court to, tell them to change their mind. They have to sit back and watch, just like us. Like we should never overstep the military. Now if the Army, and I know this would never happen, but if the Army goes rolling down our streets and blowing up houses with tanks, then okay, maybe somebody should do something, but that's not going to happen. And if anybody tries to push that, then that right there, huge red flag, they are COINTELPRO, or they've believed COINTELPRO to the point where they have no grasp on reality.
Absolutely. And we've seen it. We've seen a lot of that with the Fed action in the Telegram rooms, is trying to incite violence. That was their first pitch. So I mean, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel?
Absolutely. The name of your show is Sovereign Soul, so I don't think you'll mind me saying this, but I think the light at the end of the tunnel is God. God wins. God has already won this fight, so we don't need to fight. Period. We just need to stand, speak up, speak out, stand our ground. Don't listen to the glowies when they're telling you to take to the streets and to rabble rouse and to, do all this saber rattling crap. Truth stands alone. So if you can stand up, express the truth, tell your neighbors the truth, and, don't compromise to their, well, you're mean or you're racist or you're a bigot or whatever else, then that light is going to shine. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel, as in, do we see this, what we perceive as wrongs being corrected? Then yes, absolutely. But it might not be in your timeline. And I don't mean you specifically, Miss Jonah, but I mean just society in general. They always think, well, by this August, or maybe it's March, or maybe it's September, or okay, well, this didn't happen then, so now it's going to be in January. And that's another huge problem, is people keep setting dates. Yeah, it's not dates, it's events, right? So if you look at Q, we heard about Five Eyes information being revealed. That's never happened yet. Do I believe it will? Absolutely. Pencil neck Schiff is up her sweating bullet. There's other events that Q has mentioned that have not gone through yet. He says August is traditionally a hot month. Okay, which August? This year? Next year? 5 years from now? We don't know. Maybe it was a weather report. Disinformation is necessary, right? So you can't pinpoint anything. Pinpointing your plans to the enemy is just asking for failure. I think part of this is actually them wanting the opposition to use up ammunition, you know what I mean? To deplete their resources. That's another tactic in war.
Absolutely.
The United States told publicly that there were multiple SEAL teams, so that the Russians and other foreign adversaries would waste resources looking for all the different multiple SEAL teams. But there was really a SEAL Team 1, a SEAL Team 2, and a SEAL Team 6. There was no 3, 4, and 5. And so they were wasting resources looking for something that wasn't there. That's a tactic of war. You don't broadcast your information to the enemy. And
unless you're Obama.
Yeah, well, that was just the enemy telling the enemy what needed, Yeah. Don't even get me started on that one. Like, we all know that man was the worst. I mean, he literally created ISIS, armed them, told our military to abandon perfectly good equipment and leave it behind. So ISIS all of a sudden ends up with tanks and bases and missiles and anti-aircraft artillery. And they go on TV and say, it literally says, well, we've trained ISIS to do this and that. And then all of a sudden they change their story. Like, oops, I don't know how they got this stuff. That right there just shows how stupid they think we are.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. Well, let's change the direction here and talk a little bit about what you recently went through. I know that having been at a certain place on a certain day early in January, so to speak, I was there as media, but I've feared the 5 a.m. knock on my door and the disruption of my whole life, my whole family's life, and all that goes with it. But you did have that knock, and I'd love for you to share with us how that went down for you and the effect it's had on you and all that goes with that.
Okay. Well, the short and skinny is, man, it sucked. It sucked a
I
lot.
bet.
Um, I went, I was involved in helping run emails and coordinate meetups for the MAGA. I always say this wrong. The Midnight Riders Caravan. Enoch,
Hmm.
a good friend of mine, who, if you want to know in detailed information on COINTELPRO, how to spot them, the different tactics that they use, the man is a genius. He's got it all down. He knows the terminology. I just know how to see it.
Yeah, he was actually helping me the other day in the Punisher War Room. We had a glowy person in there, and it was pretty funny.
Oh, is that the one where he called out that he was using a script? Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So, so he organized the Midnight Riders Caravan, helped get over 700 patriots down to the Capitol and back. He paid for gas for folks, and they had bus lines donated, and that we were able to get people on to be able to get there and back home for free. Truly just trying to unify the community to go down, because Trump said, come down on the 6th and voice that we want a fair election. It'll be wild, in his tweet, and that there was going to be a rally down there or whatever. And so I was involved in that. I'd known Enoch a little while before that. And once we got down there, we went to the rally, saw Trump, and my wife and daughter actually was able to come down on one of those bus lines. I was working in Virginia at the time, and so they were several hundred miles away. And I was like, hey, I was able to get you a ride if you guys want to come and go hop on the bus. So they went down there, and we enjoyed the rally. It was peaceful. People were singing patriotic songs. They had the big screens so that people that didn't go into the White House ellipse area would still be able to see what was going on. I actually didn't go in that area because the line to get in was insane. And, the Secret Service said you had to leave all your belongings outside. And although I love my Americans and I trust my patriots, I don't trust them to not steal my backpack. So,
Sure.
I ended up actually walking
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to my
I was out there
truck.
on the. I guess, is that considered the mall between the ellipse and the Washington Monument, the giant phallic? Yeah,
Sure.
I was there.
Well, we found box cutters stashed by the porta potty area outside of the ellipse. And
Wow.
so we went over and we turned those into Secret Service. And we're like, hey, we found these and we don't want anybody to get hurt. So here, take them. And, it was cool. Trump's speech ended. I don't know exactly what time. And we started to go walking towards the Capitol. Once we got close, you could hear people on the loudspeaker, like the megaphones, giving out orders, like, oh, keep moving forward and all this, that, and the other. And we realized, like, this is the atmosphere change. My wife was military as well. She was in the Navy. Well, it's military police, but the Navy calls it master at arms. She's like
Okay.
5 foot nothing, but could drop me like a bad habit. So
I
I call
love
her,
it.
right. I call her ma'am for a reason. But I looked at her and said, this is changing. And then I smelled tear gas. I was like, do you smell that? And she was like, yeah, that's tear gas. I said, you need to get our daughter out of here. So her and my daughter, they left. And she's like, are you coming with us? I said, no, I want to go up front and videotape what's going on, because the news is not going to tell the truth. And she agreed with me. And I said, well, you are going to be going back to where we live. And I said, I got to go back to where I work. So we're not even going to be able to travel together. I'm just going to stay, and I want to see it. She was not happy with that, but she left because the safety of our daughter is the most important. I worked my way up front and was videotaping the whole time. I have my videos up on several different platforms, YouTube, CloudHub, Rumble, whatever. You guys check them out. But getting up there, the first thing I saw was an elderly woman and what I would assume to be her grandchild singing the national anthem, getting tear gassed by a Capitol police officer.
Mm.
That struck a chord with me. So
Yeah.
police brutality. Okay. I know it happens. You got dickhead cops out there, but not all of them are bad. Like there's, I have family members that are police officers. I back the blue, but seeing that en masse the way I did, innocent people getting hit with nightsticks, rubber bullets, pepper balls, pepper spray.
Were you up at the top of the stairs where the barricade was?
Actually, I didn't see any barricades. And that's one thing that I find interesting. I probably came in late enough that a lot of that stuff was torn down already, but I didn't think about it or see it at all. I came in up
Wow.
through the front and then worked my way up by the scaffolding and ended
Yeah.
up on the west. I ended up on the western terrace. Up there, I mean, the whole time I was there, I was yelling, no violence, no violence. You know, we want peace, we want freedom, ad nauseum. But there was a point where people started to like scrum against the police, right? They were trying to push through the line and push through the line using different things. We actually took pipes away from people. They were trying to use them as weapons and like convince others in the crowd. There was one point when I was standing by the scaffolding that somebody handed me a pocket knife and said, "Hey man, can you cut that?" And I looked
Wow.
at him. I was like, "Wait, what?" And like, one of the Capitol Police come by and like hit my shoulder and like pointed at me. And I realized like I was being set up. So I handed the knife back to that dude and was like, "I don't want shit to do with this," and just went back to using my voice. That right there is a moment that a lot of folks get caught up in. You know, they get caught up in the emotions and they start doing what the rest of the crowd does. So
Yeah.
thankfully, I
Yeah.
didn't.
I,
Otherwise,
yeah. If you're facing the front, I was on the right-hand side, right up where the scaffolding started was where the barricades were. And I was there pretty early and I was, just filming it all. But I got, the mace guns. I got shot directly in the face, in the eyes. It's the worst. Stumbled around, couldn't see a thing. And, there's just stairs all the way down. Finally, I mean, I had to grab people and ask them to help me because nobody was helping me. And some guy just poured water on my face and then gave me a shirt or something to wipe it off. But then, stayed there filming and had to go back down to the street to send my video because there's no data up there. And when I came back up, they were just breaching the barricade and got video of that and went under the scaffolding and opened the door under the scaffolding. And I've got video of that, people talking to the cop, and then the cops just all step back and everybody pours in we went all up to the top of the scaffolding. And I got tear gas probably 6 times up there. But at that point I had a bandana and the tear gas is nothing compared to the mace spray. That stuff's the worst.
oh yeah, yeah. I got maced several times. The rubber bullet, I got one in the back of like in my kidney. I got nightsticked quite a bit, and once I left the initial area that I was in the Western Terrace, I went up the Western Steps. I don't know the names of the different spots, but it's kind of around where it like kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. It goes up another set of steps to like the second level up there.
Right.
And as I was walking around, an officer just hit me in the back of the head with a nightstick. And then I turned around and gave him the finger and like started yelling, like, "Why the hell did you hit me?" And I realized, like, I look around and there's people getting the crap beat out of them. And so I mean, caught up in my emotion, whatever you want to say, but I ran and threw myself in between multiple police officers and an elderly man that was on the ground bleeding from the head, getting the crap beat out of him by nightsticks. And I just started screaming, "Let him up, let him up, let him up," and like kind of keeping them from beating him. And they started beating the crap out of me. And I helped him get up out of there, and I ran off. And I was, even said to the guy, like, "Hey man, you're bleeding from the head. Are you okay? You're okay." And I think this is why I've been charged with assault from a police officer or on a police officer, because in my charges, that's one of the charges I have. I believe I sent you a copy of my criminal complaint, but
Yes.
I did not attack anybody, like wholeheartedly, patently false. I have not attacked no one. Like I didn't punch, I didn't kick. The pictures that are shown all over the news, it looks like I'm ready to swing on somebody, but if you look, I'm holding a cell phone and I'm blocking a nightstick hitting my forearm.
Wow.
But it's because I look mean that the news uses it. Like
You're a mean looking guy, Pi.
I'm sorry, I'm ugly. What can
I say? Yeah, I did not experience any of the violence that you're talking about, but I didn't go up on the terrace. The farthest I went, I was up on top of the scaffolding for quite a bit. But one of my friends was telling me that her son was walking, that lawn that's down in front of the Capitol. Her son was walking around when we first got there, teenager, and he was pointing at people and saying, "That's Antifa, that's Antifa." I mean, he could just pick them out. And this other lady was down there yelling at him, saying, "You're Antifa, get out of here," and they would leave. And she was going around and telling them to leave. I mean, the infiltration was serious.
I saw people pulling sawzalls, like jigsaws and stuff, out of backpacks and started cutting down parts of the scalp, like big tarps and stuff they used as the white barrier. I don't even know what to call it, like big white tarp curtains that they have around the skirting. That's the word I'm looking for. They were cutting down the skirting, and then they used that to try to push up against the police. There was several people in the crowd. As I was screaming no violence, they started yelling and screaming at me, "Don't be saying that. How do you expect to get your country back?" and all this stuff. And I'm like, the constitutional process, the same way we always do, but it was almost to the point, like one guy wanted to fight me because I was telling people to stop being violent, and that's when you realize, like, hey, you are definitely not on the same team as the rest of them. Obviously, I don't want to characterize somebody by their looks, but sometimes you can look into a crowd of people and say something in this picture doesn't belong.
Yeah, absolutely. They were filming from the very beginning, because when I was up there at the barricade before they breached it, I mean, one of the cops that was standing up there on the steps, all he was doing was standing there videotaping everybody.
Oh yeah.
And so I just filmed him back.
Were you there after the sun went down?
No.
Okay,
living not far from DC, I know to get the hell out of there before sundown.
So after dark, down the lawn, there was a large police line, and there were groups of people. The only way that I can even characterize this, there were groups of people playing out different scenes, and there was news cameras everywhere. And in one of the videos that I just recently posted, if you have anybody goes checks them out, I even looked at a guy because he shoves a camera in my face, and I was like, "F your camera," because I realized, one, a lot of people that were there were trying to just get clicks and likes, and they were trying to act all tough and act like they're a patriot, but they obviously weren't, because they were just showboating. But that was more during the daytime. At night, it seemed more scripted. Like there was a lady standing in place with 3 or 4 different reporters around her with cameras, like video cameras, taping her. And all she kept screaming towards the cops is, my babies, I've lost my babies. You took them from me. Where did they go?" And like,
oh, you're kidding me.
You can tell when somebody speaks naturally or as if they're speaking and it's something that they've either rehearsed or they're reading or whatever. Like it's a different, they use a different iambic pentameter, and it seemed unnatural. And that threw me off, like, wait a minute. And then of course the cue thing pops in my head where you're watching a movie. And so I look around and realize like everybody's filming this stuff. And so I didn't know what to think of that. Take it for what you will. But after dark, there were scenes being played out. People on say on microphones that were literally reading off of cards, or not microphones, megaphones that were reading off of cards. There were the lady that was screaming about her kids. There was another guy bouncing back and forth saying about like, what time is it? I don't know.
Wow, that just sounds insane. I'm now even more glad I wasn't there after dark. So tell me about your actual arrest, how that all came to be, and tell us that part of the story.
And I kind of went off on a tangent. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It was a great story.
Like, you got to keep me reined in. I'm just a talker. I'll never.
No, it was great. I loved hearing every bit of it.
But when I was arrested, okay, so I was working in Alabama. I work all over the nation, like the job that I previously had, because I since then have been fired for my political beliefs, because they're such an upstanding company.
Yeah.
But I was in Alabama, and I woke up at like 6-ish, went outside to go to my truck, and I had a feeling previous couple weeks that I'd been watched. A few days before I was arrested, I publicized some stuff that I had found online in one of my digs that is rather incriminating. I call it the frazzle drip mother load, but whatever. I don't want to get into all of that right now. However, when 3 days before I was arrested, I publicized that onto the boards. And then the night before I was arrested, there was a police drone. I was out at a bar having a drink, and I was smoking a joint with a biker who I'd never met before. But there was a police drone in the bar parking lot taking pictures of me. A couple days before that, 2 separate people who very conveniently brought up the Capitol, very conveniently happened to have conversational pieces of their past that related to my past, such as a military guy that worked on helicopters and went to Afghanistan. Gee, buddy,
Wow.
that looked very federal. And so I realized that I was being watched. I didn't know what was going to happen or when. Well, I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I didn't know when. I'd actually come across my picture on the FBI's Facebook, and I'd
Ooh.
spoken to counsel ahead of time, and I said, listen, this is what's going on. I'm being surveilled, and now they have, this is up. They want people to help identify me. What do I do? And I was advised by counsel to let them come find me. Don't make their job any easier because people are being persecuted and thrown into lockup for nothing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I followed my counsel's advice. Now, back to the morning that I was leaving to go to work, a van kind of pulls out of the parking space in the parking lot that looked like a work van. It had a ladder on top and whatever, but it was extremely clean. So it already stuck out to me like, what is this? And it pulls out a little bit, and I move to the side to get out of its way because, nobody wants to get hit by a vehicle. And as soon as I step off to the side, somebody screamed, hey, and then they threw a flashbang grenade at my feet. I jumped back, it went off, and before I could even make heads or tails of what happens, because those things are very disorienting, especially when they're thrown that close to you. It actually left char marks in the asphalt of the parking lot. I took pictures of it. It was, I'm glad I didn't kick it. Well, I should have kicked it, but I'm glad I didn't try to grab it, whatever.
Well, I mean, that's just crazy that they think they have to go to that extent and instead of just approaching you and saying you're under arrest or whatever. I mean, that's insane.
If they would have knocked on the door or called me up like, hey, we need you to come down to the office and turn in your videos or whatever, sign some papers and, do an arraignment, I'd have been like, yeah, cool, no problem. Why? Because I trust the justice system, as screwed up as it may look sometimes. But I believe in our system. I believe in our country. But they didn't. They brought out multiple FBI counterterrorism SWAT team guys with fully automatic rifles and camo. And they were like, FBI, get down on the ground. And so I got down on the ground, I'm just a slack-jawed yokel from BFE nowhere. So I dropped to my knees, and then they, got me down the rest of the way to the asphalt, which hurt, by the way. But after that, they were very polite, professional. The quote-unquote arresting agent actually looked at me and said, hey, we understand this is a little off-putting, but you are innocent until proven guilty. They exercised the search warrant on my room, confiscated all of my electronics. They even took some of my clothes and my jacket, my hat, receipts. Like they really went through and they were rather thorough and pretty much took anything and everything that was what they would consider evidence. After that, I mean, I was in handcuffs for several hours. They were nice enough to let me get out of the car and smoke a cigarette.
Where was this as far as where they took you?
Well, I was at the hotel I was staying at still. When they brought my electronics out of the room, I was given a court order to use my fingerprint to unlock my biometrics on the cell phones.
Wow.
And so I had to do that. I like stocks, and I find it funny that when I did open up my phones, my stock chart popped up, and I looked at one of the forensics guys that were there, and I said, hey, before you guys take those, can you please tell me where GameStop and AMC stocks are? And he looks and he told me the price, and I was making a pretty killer profit at that point. So I was happy. And,
so you're giving him stock advice at that point?
And yeah. And well, he looks at me, he goes, the forensics guy says, it looks like you and I have something in common. And if anybody knows anything about being a retarded ape, I looked at him and said, well, I just like the stock, sir. And he laughed and he says, yeah, me too. But I found it funny that even though I'm a quote unquote, they label me a terrorist,
domestic terrorist.
Yeah, they were still being personable. So I got to give them that. People can be mad. Oh, I was arrested and this is a bunch of BS. Like, I give credit where credit is due. I actually told every single one of those officers, I appreciate your service, because the rank and file, the majority of them, if anything, that I could tell, they want to serve their nation just like I did when I was in the military. They're not out to get people.
I've got a friend whose husband is a Fed, and she said he comes home from work and he's like, I can't believe all the man hours and money that is being spent to look at every phone ping and identify every person in every picture from that day.
The largest prosecution in American history.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
They
So
took me
tell us the rest of your story.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
U.S. Marshals office. That's where I was booked and arraigned and fingerprinted, and I sat in a cold cell with a stainless steel bed and the toilet that has no privacy, etc. And then they brought in a temporary public defender, which I'm not even going to go. I'm not going to disparage. I'm sure she does her job well, but it was basically like, look, I'm here, but I'm not going to do anything. Whenever they were asking me some questions, I even looked at her, was like, should I be answering these? And she was like, well, sure, I guess. So,
that's despicable.
Like, yeah, thanks for the defense, lady. But I am lucky because they awarded me bond. I asked them, I said, listen, my oldest son was about to graduate high school. I said, I would love to see it. Like, I was getting ready to go home and be part of that. Like, to see my son graduate was a milestone, and they allowed me, and which I think is wonderful. It's by the grace of God that I was able to do it. Once I came back from my son's graduation, which was 2 days later, I went back to Alabama and I had to report to federal supervision, drug test after drug test, and all of the terms and stuff that they put down, that I couldn't leave this certain area. I had to call every day at these times and do all of this, all this different stuff. But from that point, I was put on administrative leave at my job at no pay. And it wasn't until 2 months went by that they actually terminated me. But I had a non-competitive clause and non-disclosure agreements so that I couldn't really go try to get another job until they let me go. And I was stranded in Alabama for that entire 2 months. They took away my transportation. They took away my ability to get to court. So I actually was asking people with like random, I shouldn't say random, but people that I just recently met within the previous couple weeks at like a bar or a restaurant or, wherever. And I was like, hey, I'm kind of in struggle. Can you give me a ride to the federal courthouse? And, they look at me like I'm nuts.
Yeah.
But, God bless people for their kindness. I made every one of my things that I should have on time and all of that. So it was amazing.
What's your status now with all of that?
I'm home with my family. I'm with my kids. I'm not stuck in Alabama anymore, but that is definitely, I'm free still, but I'm still under their thumb. I still got to report. I still got to go for random drug tests. By the grace of God, I was able to get.
Do you have another court date set, or legally, where are you?
Well, they told me my next court date was going to be August 3rd. And for some reason, my attorney, because the court did not meet their deadline to present evidence and discovery, he thought it would be wise to ask for a continuance to give them more time to find stuff to incriminate me with.
Interesting.
Yeah, I still don't know how to understand that one. But, apparently, as he says, I'm not a lawyer. So it is what it is. They got a continuance until October. So
okay,
that's another blessing. But that's one reason I've gone headfirst and try to push this campaign of the Sing for Freedom.
I did have one more question before we go there, and that is, why do you think they let you go, and they didn't let all these other people go?
Well, it's definitely not for my boyish good look. I have no idea, and I feel guilty about it. I don't know. I know my charges are more severe than some that are in solitary confinement or in federal lockup. There's people in there for parading and trespassing. I'm looking at 6 federal charges of, much heftier things.
So you never got taken where they all are. Is that correct?
I did not go to the federal penitentiary down there. I went to the U.S. Marshal's office in Alabama. I'm actually not allowed in D.C. That's one of my terms. I am not allowed to visit. I'm not allowed.
Well, it's a foreign country. Yeah, you don't want to go there. It's a foreign country now. Okay, so yes, your call to action is amazing. I love it, and everybody definitely needs to share it. So Pi created a video. It's in our channel. Everybody should watch it. But he asks us all to sing the national anthem every night at 9 because that's what the political prisoners are doing, who are being kept unlawfully. And so why don't you expound on that a little bit, because it's just beautiful.
Yes. So They're being persecuted for expressing patriotism for the same country that is persecuting them. Like, I can't wrap my head around that. They love this nation enough that even though they are behind bars, they can express love of nation, even though it is right now that nation that is holding them under their thumb. And every day at 9 p.m., they sing the national anthem in one unified voice. That moves me to tears. I feel guilty because I'm free. So I go out on my porch and I stand in unity with them because they're going through something much more horrendous than I could ever even imagine. And I know I'll probably be there with them one day. So I might as well get my practice in. But I say that because the federal government has a 97% prosecution rate. We'll go into that in a second. But I'm asking everybody to express their love of nation, express their patriotism, and stand in solidarity with our patriots that are being persecuted. Sing the national anthem, sing any patriotic song, whatever you feel comfortable with, but go out on your porch at 9 p.m. so that your neighbors can hear you and spread it around. Challenge your neighbors to do the same. I mean, they did the song of Can You Imagine during the pandemic. The lefties can do that we can stand together and show our love of nation and show that patriotism is not dying in this country. People are afraid to fly their flags. People are afraid to show that they have any modicum of respect for our country, our flag, our national anthem, and for patriotism itself is being considered a hate speech now. We need to fight that. That is a truth that our nation is founded upon, and it's the truth that helps recognize the sacrifices made to protect the God-given rights that we cherish here. And if we lay down to let that die, then it's gone. We're not going to be free. We're all going to be, it's going to be awful. I don't even want to go into that. So I'm asking people to go out every night at 9 p.m. If you don't want to sing the national anthem, sing any patriotic song. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. Patriotism needs to be reborn. It will kindle a fire of revival in this nation. I know it. If people around you can realize that you're not afraid to show that you love this country, it could give them the strength to speak up as well.
Amen. It's a beautiful thing. I really hope everybody will join in this. And like Pi said, spread it around and get it going. Get out there with your kids. We need to, remind them to be patriots. Definitely keep that fire burning and stoke the flames for sure.
If anybody posts a video of them singing online, use the hashtag Sing for Freedom. There's two different ones. Sing for with the number, like Sing for Freedom, or Sing for the word, FOR. Both hashtags are linked to these types of campaigns. Sing for freedom. That way other people online can see it, get it trending, whatever, but it will help spread patriotism. And this could become even global because other nations are watching us. The world is watching America to see what we do. And if they watch us lay down, how demoralizing would that be to other nations that are under actual dictatorships right now? Like, we are on the cusp, but they are actually being shot down in the streets for speaking out against their government.
And they are crying out. They are crying out to us. Why aren't you guys doing anything?
When Hong Kong protested China, you want to know what symbol of freedom they used? The American flag. The American flag. They held the flag up in public. I'm fighting back
quite
tears. I'm sorry. I'm fighting back tears. The Chinese have been under the dictatorship for decades, and they look to us for hope. And we are just laying down. I'm not asking anybody to go out in the streets and to cause a ruckus. Go out and sing. It is the pen that is mightier than the sword that changes bureaucracy. Violence will destroy a nation. But if we band together, that is what they fear the most.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and that's what their whole campaign has been. It's been division. And, it's gotten to the point where now they're trying as hard as they can to cause division within our movement. And, I think it's so important to keep eyes out for that. But, let's unify with this. It's unify with a song, It's a huge, huge way to get this going in the right direction.
Music can get to somebody's heart a lot quicker than somebody yelling on a street corner with a sign.
Absolutely.
Let's use their forms of propaganda against them. And I'm not calling our national anthem propaganda, but any form of music does have a bit of propaganda to it because it affects your emotions. Music has scientifically been proven to affect your emotions. And that's what propaganda targets, is your emotions, because it hits much harder than the facts. The facts can defeat propaganda if you keep pushing truth a lot. If somebody's trying to push fear, then you can show people facts that they don't have to be afraid of something. But if you want to elicit a response from somebody, music works more than words. So you can yell at somebody, or you can put lyrics in a song. They're going to be bebopping down the street singing their song in their head, your song in their head. They're not going to be bebopping down the street remembering that you cussed and yelled at them and threw stuff. So yes, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but just please, folks, get out there and show the patriotism isn't dead. Hashtag sing for freedom. Show your neighbors that they don't have to be afraid.
Well, thank you so much, Pi. I'm really glad that you joined us tonight. This was a very interesting conversation and very powerful. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sticking around to let a couple people ask some questions.
I'd be happy to. But at first, I want to thank you, not only for letting me share my story, but thank you for your professionalism, your kindness. But before this, I see your dedication to this movement. I see that you are fighting against that COINTELPRO and trying to be, the smiling face at still, because that's hard. A lot of folks, they get beaten down and trodden, and it's not pretty, right? War is never pretty, and we're in a war of information. So kudos to you. And I'm sorry I got your name wrong the other day, but I'm not the brightest crayon in the box. But I see.
I don't even remember that. But you know
what
what?
What did you call her?
That means so much to me. That means so much that you said that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I called her Joanne Spiff, and she was like, "Well, it's Jonah." Okay.
I'm gonna start calling her Joanne.
That's crazy. Don't call me Joanne.
Hey, it's a great place to get yarn. Okay, I'm going to I'm leading the Hey, split force, unite. All right, I'm gonna open up the lines here for you guys. Alice, you are free.
Hi, my name is Alice, and I've been speaking with Jonah for a while now here on Telegram. I'm associated with Professor David Clements. Have you heard of him?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, we absolutely have.
Okay.
If you get a message to him, ask him why I got banned from his channel, because
you got banned from the professor's record.
Oh,
listen, I know he didn't mean to do it. I think it's possibly because
it's mods.
It's
mods.
But all I wrote in there was, I've been told to speak with you because I was arrested on January 6th. Please DM me. And then 30 seconds later, I was booted. So yes, I've heard of him.
Okay.
I would love to speak with him.
What I will do is that his wife, Erin Clement, is really into QAnon, and now she's she's mentoring, or I don't know, she's the head of the New Mexico audit chat, because the professor's really into the audit. But he has the Prisoner's Record, which is a praying group. The thing is he showcases, and he actually interviewed Coy Griffin. Do you know who he is? He's from New Mexico. He was arrested also and kept in solitary for January 6th. And the one who's representing him now is Sidney Powell. But what the professor is doing, and he's from Alamogordo, which is a town about 80 miles from where I'm at in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And that's where the professor is too. But I will make sure I can get him in touch with you. Get him or Erin in touch with you, okay? And I know that we're praying for you. The only reason I brought it up was because he features, prisoner or whatever they have labeled you guys now. And the people on his chat attempt to donate directly to that person for either legal fees or, things that you might need for your family, to take care of your family. So I'm going to do everything in my power to get you in touch. And I would bet he might want to interview you, especially with what you're doing with the singing.
Well, that would be great. I do want to let folks know that I'm not doing any of this or publicizing anything that I'm going through for financial gain.
Right. Nobody is. But you also have to know, and David knows, that you didn't ask to be martyrs, but that's what our government made you. And there's a lot of people that are praying for you and care about what happened to you. And actually, the interview that he did with Coe Griffin, it's like, I wanted to ask you, because we all have that question, is why do you think by the time Sidney Powell took his case, he'd already been through a lot, was continuing to be harassed after he was left. What do you think? What is going through your mind? Do you think that America forgot about you, or even that our president forgot about you?
No. The president has nothing to do with anything that happened at the Capitol, right? Every individual is sovereign to their own actions. He asked us to come down and stand in solidarity. It wasn't his fault that the other side decided to meet us with violence. It's not his fault that infiltrators came down there with the intention of creating discord. So first of all, I didn't go to the Capitol because the president said, come down here. I went to D.C. to see his rally because I support the president. Trump's one of the best presidents that we've had, and definitely the best of my lifetime. But after his rally was over, I didn't think about Trump again. I went to the Capitol because that's, I did go down there because I knew there was a permitted protest for the election. So I went down there to express my First Amendment right that we deserve a fair and free election. I wasn't told by Trump or anybody else to do that. That was my own decision. That was my own conviction for the rights and the duty that I have as a veteran. And every American, in my opinion, has that duty. But I swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. And so I wanted to go express my voice because I'm strong enough and confident enough to use my voice when others may not be. Now, other people, they've turned their back on us. They've turned their back on a lot of Americans, and it's mostly, in my opinion, because they believe lies, right? Anybody that doesn't agree with me or that argues with me or whatever, I don't meet them back with hostility. I realize that they've been lied to and that they are misguided, and they believe it. Some people you're never going to convince that they've been lied to because that's extremely hard. However, it's not really their fault. Now, as for the people that are mailing death threats to my house, they can stick it. I'm not going to be nice to them. But if I ever have a chance to speak to them on a level playing field, I'm not going to be nasty to them because nobody will be convinced or swayed if you meet them with hostility, right? I'm sure everybody knows the old slogan that you can get more bees with honey than vinegar. Love trumps hate. Light beats darkness. Martin Luther King Jr. said it a lot more eloquently than I can. But that's the truth, right? They want us to be hateful. They want us to be spiteful because then they can label us as an enemy. And what is one of the first things to win a war is you have to be able to label your enemy as the enemy. That's why for the longest time, Obama never said Islamic terrorism or Islamic extremism, because he did not want to have us to be able to label them as an enemy, because that would be the first step towards defeating them. That's what they want from us. So I don't blame anybody. It only took 3% of society to stand up against the British.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alice. I appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
I see a few other people raising their hands. Audis member.
Yeah, I know Pi very well, and my question to him is really straightforward. I know he's in it to win it, and I know that he's going to fight to the very end. And what can I do to help him build both his following and the people that he needs, around him that are going to actually do things other than get into some echo chamber and regurgitate the same things over to each other. I'd like to help. What should I do?
Well, first of all, you're already doing it, Audis. You've been a good friend of mine for quite some time. And even though I got myself in the middle of a pickle. You never turned your back on me, and none of my community has, and that I'm forever thankful. You can pray. Prayer is one of the greatest weapons that we have, because we're not fighting people, we're fighting the powers and principalities of the darkness. And so get people to pray. If you want to help with the following, I'm not in this for followers, and you know that, but I think I know what you mean. Spread that message of getting people to sing for freedom. Bring awareness to those that are in lockup, because this isn't going to stop. They're at 500 now, and there's going to be more to come. Once they get a taste for blood, it's going to become bad. And once they're done coming after us, they're going to start coming after everybody else. This is just the first step, and it can get really bad really quick. So spread the message that people need to speak up, speak out, sing for freedom, bring awareness to those that are in this mess. And not just me. I mean, I think there's 500 plus now.
Yeah, no, I understand. And, we both understand that we are at war and there will be casualties. And you're going to just have to face that fact. People have said to me, a lot of things to the effect of, you're going to wreck your life. And, you wrecked my country. So don't expect me to stand down. Where we are to, I'm blessed to be with this group of people. We fight together. We stand up for each other. You came to see me when I was down pretty hard, and I thank you for that. We've both been casualties in this war, but lick your wound, get back up, and start swinging again. And I'll be right there with you.
You're raw, buddy. And for everybody else that knows, I actually met Audist in person when I was working in Texas, and this man makes a killer fajita. So if you're ever in Texas, hit him up, because it's freaking amazing.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Audist, for joining us. And you guys all be sure and join the Spitforce Live channel. And there's actually a coordinating chat room. Spitforce Live is also the name of our news show. It's fully vetted, sauced news. We air Tuesday and Thursday nights at 10 p.m. in this channel, and a lot of snark to go along with it.
I did join the one. I'll find the chat and join that too.
Yeah, there should be a link to it in the channel to join the chat room too.
All past shows are on Rumble.
Our Rumble is sort of new, so we don't have a lot of followers yet. So we would love you guys to share that around.
But hey, it's amazing. Anyway,
I got a lot of friends that are in Rumble and watch it all the time. So I'll make sure that I pass that link on to them for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I did notice that Todd wanted to talk, so I'm going to raise his hand. And Eileen, you will be next. All right.
Could I ask if whoever's running the Spitforce Live, the main page, if you guys could post my criminal complaint? Are you talking about sauce?
Yeah, I'll put it in. I'll put it in there.
Yeah, we got that, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Todd, you are good to go.
Sorry, guys. I just want to say thank you guys for sharing, and it's very it's emotional for a lot of us, but to hear from somebody that was actually there is very important. I thank you guys for speaking up, and we all know. Anybody that saw what happened, or we all know the truth of the reality of what went down that day in particular, but specifically regarding this whole the COVID thing. So, but I appreciate you guys sharing everything. It makes a difference. It does. Believe it or not. I mean, there's a lot of people that, even though it's a small, right now it's kind of small. It seems small. I suspect that very shortly, in a very short period of time, things are going to, come to light. Everything that we have been talking about is going to be justified. You got to maintain, everybody has to maintain a little bit of patience. I know we've been tried and somewhat tested, by this, but I'm not going to react out of anger and frustration. I'm just going to maintain integrity. And I think that's what everybody needs to do: maintain your integrity and your rights. We all know that we've been bamboozled somewhat, so it's kind of a waiting game for me at this point. I don't know what else more that I can do. I mean, I probably I don't know if I can share more than you guys have already shared. So, but I thank you for that. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Todd. Well, much appreciated. Go ahead.
I thank you, Todd, for your kind words. Don't forget that we're all in this together. I'm in the crap now, but just knowing that there's a community is standing behind me and all the other inmates and people that have been arrested or harassed and persecuted, that means a lot. Just a kind word or a little bit of support goes a long way. And that's why I say prayer is important, because one, it shows sincerity, and a person can tell if somebody's truly being sincere or not. So keep doing what you're doing. And it's an honor to march alongside all of you. So thank you for your kind words, Todd.
I appreciate that. And I do want you to know that, believe me, I guarantee you it's not a couple hundred. It's not a couple thousand. It's not tens of thousands. It's probably millions of people, millions, that stand behind you. And you're just not aware of it yet. Not yet. Or maybe you haven't, that they're there, but it's like one of these things that one day all of a sudden you're going to go, oh my God.
Can you imagine how long or how loud the chorus would be if millions of people sang the national anthem at 9:00 at the same time? I think it would rattle Mary Margaret's windows.
And I think that's so true about the numbers, because, there was a Rasmussen poll this week that said that 90% of Americans, their first concern is election integrity. And I think Spiff probably knows when it was, when the original one, was it a year ago?
It was in April, and it was only 55% and it was Rasmussen, which, hey guys, it's a right-leaning poll there, but
yes,
yeah, it was only in April that it was only 55%. So guys, we're doing some good here.
And even if it is only right-leaning, I mean, the fact that we do know, I mean, so many of us have friends who decided to take the jab or don't think that there really was voter fraud or whatever. So to see that change, even if it's just on the right, is huge. Eileen, I know you've been waiting, my dear. Speak.
Well, first of all, every time I hear something, I think I've heard it all, and then I find out that I haven't. I knew it was rough down there, but I had no idea that Pi and you went through what you did. None whatsoever. I've seen some of the videos that have been posted online, and of course I saw the news propaganda when it all went down that night on some of the news on OAN. I want to say, first of all, because if I don't say this, I'm going to start crying, okay? Is that as I was growing up, in all the years I went to grade school, high school, and then to college, our morning breakfast was either oatmeal or cream of wheat. So I don't know where this bacon and eggs, I understand what you said, and I'm not doubting what you said, but that just struck me as odd, because all the kids I knew, high school, and we went away to college at Northern Illinois University, it was cream of wheat or oatmeal and fruit. And then on Sundays, you got pancakes and maybe sausage or bacon. So I just had to say that, which is the truth. Anyway, the other thing I don't think a lot of people really realize is, besides the military swearing allegiance to the Constitution, every single military civilian, when they go to work for the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, or whatever, they actually swear allegiance to the Constitution. When I worked for the Navy, and then after I got promoted and went to work for the Army, I had to renew my allegiance to the Constitution. When I stopped working, when I got promoted and I went to work for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, boom, because I was working for a different military organization, I again swore my allegiance to the Constitution. And then when I went from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and got promoted again and went to back to the Army, I again renewed my commitment and my allegiance to the Constitution. We basically swear the same oath that the military does, because we have to obey the officers and civilians that are in charge of us. And I don't really think a lot of people realize that. So you've got civilians, military civilians, that have pledged allegiance, taken that oath to the Constitution, that are either committing sedition or treason. The other thing I wanted to say, and I can be wrong on this, is DC is a foreign entity. So those prisoners, those patriotic prisoners from January 6th are being held in a foreign country, right?
I can't necessarily consign to the 1817 treaty because it's not recognized by our courts. Now, will that change? It's possible. I don't know enough about it to verify that. However, that leans into the idea of admiralty law and maritime laws and the whole golden fringes around our flag. And if you talk to any counsel, any lawyers, they are going to tell you that is not recognized. Now, can that change? Sure. But I don't know enough about the legality of it to verify that or to deny it. So I'm just going to have to say only time will tell.
Right.
Now, as for the bacon and eggs, it is a colloquialism in society. It doesn't mean that everybody got to eat bacon and eggs all the time. It is seen as, quote unquote, America's breakfast. Just like the Dallas Cowboys are seen as America's football team, even though they offered it to the Steelers first and they denied it. Go Steelers.
Right. I wasn't doubting your word. It's just that when you were talking about that, I was sitting here laughing to myself, thinking about, oh boy, I wish we had done that when we were growing up and we were in college and stuff. That's all.
Yeah, Sloan only got gruel. She was fed gruel and she had to walk uphill both ways in the snow every day to school. So
definitely.
Oh, well, thank you, dear. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining in.
I'll tell you, you guys are just friggin' awesome. I mean, I knew it was bad down there on January 6th, but I never knew how bad it was for people that I deeply care about. And also, you guys know how I pray, and so you guys are always in my prayers morning, noon, and night.
Thank you. You are a prayer warrior for sure. Amazing prayer warrior, and we thank you for that. That's what we need.
Yes, thank you, Miss Sloan. And if you want to see it, check out my video. You'll actually see me get the crap beat out of me by the police. So that way you know that I'm telling you the truth. It was a little rough.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. If you weren't telling the truth, Joan Up would never have let you on this show.
Too funny. All right. Thanks, Sloan. All right. Cliff. There we go.
There we go. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Thanks for letting me in here.
Hey, Cliff.
Hey, one thing about the incorporation of America, I was talking to my mom who graduated high school, I think 1975. They taught her about that in 8th grade in San Miguel, California. The incorporation of America stuff that kind of sounds a little crazy now. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He's about 15 years older than I am, and he was taught about that somewhere in Texas where he went to school.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Hey, I know there's some people listening from Punisher War Room. If any of you guys want to ask a question, pop over into Spiff Force Live and raise your hand, and you can ask a question too. Cliff, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Oh, no, that was it. Mostly I just accidentally tapped the request to speak button, so I thought, well, I guess. And then you started saying something like, well, I'll say hi.
Well, thanks. That's a great point. I appreciate you jumping in. All right. Is there anybody else that has a question or comment? Or Doc wants to ask a question.
Doc has a good question, I am sure.
Doc never stays up late enough for our shows, so I'm very excited he's joined us tonight.
This is a pleasing moment.
Yes, he usually has to listen to the recorded shows.
I like to really thank the whole team and especially Pi for coming on and sharing his story. I'm just saddened, angered about what happened. I didn't know what happened to my friend Jonah down there. And if there's anything the Sovereign Souls or I can do to make this go viral, I promise with my God-given soul to help you. Now, as far as the Constitution, I'm from a rural country town called Random Lake, Wisconsin, and our history teacher, Don Green, taught us the Constitution, and in civics, we went through the entire Federalist Papers and we read it as it was written, as difficult and lengthy it was. So I am confident America is not lost. Prayer and love is what's going to get us all through this.
Thank you. We appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad you were here with us tonight.
You know I'd be here.
Thanks, Doc. You're the best. Well, Pi, do you have anything else you want to say? Oh, wait. We have one more question from Papist.
Your story actually had me in tears because I might have been down there as well. I will never deny or no, but so we were on the backside. But anyway, there's a lot of, I guess, mistrust or a lot of infiltration into the Patriot movement right now, as you probably well know. So what do you think would be the greatest offense toward the Patriot movement? Would it be spreading lies or trying to rise up or trying to do a false flag event, or maybe even threatening to turn somebody into the FBI? What would you think would be the worst thing a Patriot could do?
Well, the worst thing a Patriot could do would be to believe the narrative that they're being fed, that they need to go out and do something of violence. But I think the biggest offense against the Patriot movement from the feds or the other side, I don't think it's just the feds, like the FBI feds. I think it's three-letter agencies. I think it's special interest groups. It's fear. People are afraid to even get together and meet up. My buddy Enoch is trying to plan a national meetup of Patriots in all 50 states and I think 13 or 14 other countries. And all that's going to be is like breaking bread with folks, fellowship in a Zoom call. And people are literally coming out of the woodwork like, don't do it. There's going to be a false flag. There's going to be violence. There's going to be this. And everybody's afraid of the what if. Nobody can stop us from going to go meet each other. You know, the first American Revolution was put together because people met up in bars and restaurants and churches. What the other side fears from us is unity. And so they use fear against us to keep us separated. I think that's one reason that they did this big push of kicking everybody off of Twitter and Facebooks and all the other social medias and sequestered us all into these echo chambers of very individualized social media platforms like Telegram and Getter and Gab. It split us all up because they know divided we're weak, and that gives them a chance to whisper into the ears of small select groups of patriots to spread their disinformation and misinformation instead of us all being unified on one big platform fighting the battlefield, because we were winning. We are winning. It might not seem like it because we're all stuck in these small little pockets, but it's hard for them to fight against us if we're unified in one place. So the first thing they did was split us all up, you know, and now they're trying to keep us from even being able to leave our homes, with whether it be quarantine and the fear of some Delta variant that they can't even test for. The test itself couldn't even test for anything other than a common cold or the flu, and it still couldn't tell the difference between the two. So now they have Deltas and Lambdas and all these other bull crap lies that they're feeding us to keep us afraid, right? And maybe not us, but all of those around us. And then they segregate themselves from us so that we cannot convince them that they're being lied to. So the biggest thing that we can do is to fight that fear with courage, knowing that we're not alone. We are not the minority. And facts, truth, love. Don't fear, just love. You know, one thing I learned when I was in the military, you're not going to hear the shot that kills you. So just live your life and keep on moving forward, because if you can move, you're alive. If you feel pain, guess what? That's part of life, but you're still alive. You can't just lay down and take it, because if you stop moving, you're dead. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to look at it. But you just got to keep moving forward, and you cannot let them back you into a corner and then you just curl up into a ball and die. And I don't think you would. I'm just saying you as like a general for society as a whole. But us in this movement, we cannot let them box us in and get us afraid to do anything. That's what they want. They want us to be violent. If they expect us that if we do band together, they want us to be violent. So they're only giving us two options: cower in fear or go out there and be a fool. So tell yourself that neither one of those are an option, and just go out and live life, right? Non-compliance, unity, and facts, truth. That's what we need.
Amen.
And if I could give a quick shout out for Enoch's thing, get involved.
Go ahead.
Every single state. Everybody's going to get together and network with each other to bring in that unity in our movement. The Green Dragon is a channel that he has here on Telegram. He's just starting it up at the beginning of this campaign that he's doing to unify patriots across the entire country. Don't be afraid, all right? If you can go to your grocery store, you can go to some local meetup in your state and have dinner with some patriots and do a Zoom call, right? It's not going to be protesting. It's not going to be going out in the streets and calling for any other type of garbage so that people can get trapped, all right? Because you hear folks out there saying, oh, well, we're going to have a protest, but we got a permit. Newsflash, people, they had a permit at the Capitol. The police were at the Capitol, right? The permit isn't going to save you. So to have something where it's just a normal meetup of friends, right? Coffee and some dinner to show people a show of numbers that they're not alone. And so hit up my boy Enoch and check out his Green Dragon channel. Get involved in your state. And also, like I mentioned before, with my singing campaign, Sing for Freedom. Heck, maybe you guys can all get together at the campaign and sing the national anthem together in unity, the entire country all at one time. Like, that would be freaking amazing.
That's so true. I think that is probably their main purpose of what they've done with the Capitol arrest, is they are trying to instill fear. I mean, this has been a huge fear campaign from the pandemic to you throw on this, and they fully expected, because, we're the 2A people, that we're going to rise up, because they want a civil war to break out. That's their main objective. And when we didn't do it and they pushed and pushed and pushed, then that's when they started infiltrating and trying to come in our rooms here and try to instill that, let's rise up and go to arms. And I'd say, don't be afraid, but definitely make sure you're in the right group. You're not part of something that's not what it really looks like it is. There's plenty of that out there. But Pi, we've kept you for a long time tonight, and I so appreciate you being here. And it's super special to me that you are my launch show, because what you've been through is near and dear to my heart for many reasons, and you exemplify what my show is all about, and the people that I'm going to be talking to, who are the especially courageous and loud and fearless patriots out there. So I thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, I can't help but thank you, Lena, just for letting me be here. And the fact that I'm your first, I didn't realize that until I saw your the little flyer that you had posted. It said that it was your premiere. And I truly am honored, because I don't feel like I'm important enough or big enough, or I'm nobody. I'm just some hilljack from the mountains of West Virginia that, loves my nation, and I'm willing to tell everybody about it.
Oh, thank you. And that's why it's so perfect, because every one of us is somebody. And so many people think, what can I do? And there's people that are just to the point where they're upset that they don't feel like they're doing enough. And whether you're just praying or hanging out with your patriot friends and supporting them with love and prayer and all of that, cheering them on, it doesn't matter. It's so many little things, like getting out and singing the national anthem, is what's going to win this war for us. So we just have to keep moving forward.
That's it. Don't let people know they're alone. Let them know that you're with them. People are afraid to say they love this nation. And I grew up in a time where I was the kid that stood up in my living room with my grandpa when we watched baseball games. And when they played the national anthem, I put my hand on my heart and I sang it along with them. That's the generation that is now being forced to sequester themselves. Don't let them win.
Absolutely. Yes. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys every Friday night. And of course, I look forward to seeing you on Spiff Force Live that I co-host with Spiff. All right. Great talking to you. Thanks for being here, everybody. And we will see you on the flip side.